Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. How we doing? This is Breaking Spectre here. Good to have you aboard. And we are doing no BS tonight on the 5x5 channel. Good to have you aboard as always. If you're with us joining on Twitch, on YouTube, over on Periscope, good to have you aboard. D-Live, we're getting you up and going here. And Foxhole, still trying to get you to connect, so bear with me here momentarily. Still trying to get you up and running. Seems like just as I went to showtime here that it decided it wanted to crash or have some sort of issue, so I'll try and get that up here momentarily. Tonight on the broadcast, what we're going to cover is some of the goings on with Ghislaine Maxwell, and of course some of the developments around Epstein, all that good stuff, kind of bring you up to speed, if you will, over the last, I'd say 30 days, this past week. If you've paid attention, there's been some developments by way of Ghislaine, and we're going to cover that. The judge rules some Ghislaine Maxwell details are too, quote, sensational and impure to be revealed to the public. Can you believe that? What could possibly be so bad that they cannot allow the old documents to be redacted? That's what we're going to hit up here tonight. But first, like I said, we're going to walk this thing forward a little bit. So let's just jump right in out of the Epoch Times dating back to, not quite a month ago on the 24th of February. Ghislaine Maxwell makes third attempt at bail on sex charges. That's out of Epoch Times, like I said. Ghislaine, we know her well, a British socialite awaiting trial on charges that she recruited teenage girls for Epstein to sexually abuse, says she'll renounce her UK and French citizenships if she can be freed on bail, according to a court filing on Tuesday. Again, reminding you that this is dating back to February 24th. Maxwell's attorneys made the offer in a third try at getting Maxwell out of jail before a trial scheduled for July in Manhattan federal court. A judge has previously rejected two bail attempts, including a $28.5 million bail release proposal in December. As part of the latest bail proposal, defense attorneys wrote that they will put the bulk of the $22.5 million estate belonging to Maxwell and her still unidentified husband into a special account to be overseen by an asset manager, a former federal judge and U.S. attorney from Georgia. The deal would be set aside about $500,000 for living expenses and over $7 million for legal fees. The 59-year-old was arrested 7 months ago on charges alleging she recruited 3 girls for Epstein to abuse in the mid-1990s and has pleaded not guilty. Epstein, her one-time boyfriend, killed himself in a Manhattan federal lockup in August 2019 as he awaited trial on sex trafficking charges. Hashtag, did he really kill himself? Well, I don't know. We'll have to see. And by the way, programming note here, it looks like we are up on the Foxhole side. Still waiting for it to come up here. Bear with it. Looks like they're still trying to get things going here, so stick with us. We'll get you guys up and going here on the Foxhole side momentarily. Maxwell's lawyers say the new proposed bail package would resolve some of the concerns that previously got proposals rejected, including a failure to show Maxwell would not be able to access her assets to flee or rely on her citizenship of France, which would not extradite her to the United States. Maxwell also holds U.S. citizenship. And of course, the lawyers also wrote that they had hoped a dozen separate arguments recently made to get the criminal charges against their client thrown out or reduced would also affect any bail decision. The challenges included claims that Maxwell should benefit from a non-prosecution agreement. We'll call that an NPA because we'll see that through subsequent documents here and articles here tonight. Epstein signed with federal prosecutors a dozen years ago and claims that coronavirus crackdowns, of all things, forced a suburban grand jury to return her indictment, depriving her of the diversity of a Manhattan-based panel. Oh yes. See how many different ways coronavirus can be used? It's a very effective tool. These motions significantly call into question the strength of the government's case against Ms. Maxwell and the underlying justification for continued detention, the lawyers wrote. The lawyers also wrote that Maxwell has been the victim of vicious slurs, persistent lies, and blatant inaccuracies, and has been depicted as a cartoon character villain in an attempt to turn her into a substitute replacement for Mr. Epstein. They added, yet Ms. Maxwell is determined and welcomes the opportunity to face her accusers at trial and clear her name. Prosecutors declined to comment through a spokesperson. Now, mind you, that is from back in February, so let's walk this forward. In case you haven't been keeping up on this, RT had this back on the 24th. Epstein associate Ghislaine Maxwell offers to renounce her UK and French citizenship in exchange for bail. And of course, if you remember right, I think there were a lot of folks thinking that perhaps she was holed up in an embassy, I think, Israeli embassy perhaps, if I'm recalling correctly, in France before eventually, July of last year, if I'm recalling correctly, she was found in her redoubt up in the northeast. Jeffrey Epstein's alleged accomplice Ghislaine Maxwell has offered to give up her British and French citizenship in order to be released on bail. She was arrested on charges of trafficking underage girls. Maxwell will renounce her French and British citizenship to eliminate any opportunity for her to seek refuge in those countries if the court so requires, her lawyers wrote in a filing published by the Courthouse News website. And the defendant's legal team argued that by doing so, Maxwell will not be able to seek any protection against extradition that applies to citizens of these countries. The court document also said that Maxwell is willing to have her and her husband's assets placed in a new account that would be monitored to ensure that she will not use the money to flee from prosecution. This is Maxwell's third request to be released on bail. Her previous request was denied in December, as the court argued that no conditions of release can assure that Maxwell shows up for trial. And of course, the rest of that kind of reads the same as the previous article. So, flashing forward, we get into the Big League Politics article dating back to March 5th now. A couple weeks ago, whistleblower who placed Bill Clinton at Epstein's pedo island now cooperating with Ghislaine Maxwell investigation. Very interesting. So here's where the two cases apparently start to intertwine. This is a long-time Bill Clinton aide who came forward with shocking claims that the former president had visited Jeffrey Epstein's infamous pedophile island in the early 2000s, is now cooperating with federal authorities who continue to investigate Ghislaine during her ongoing sex trafficking trial, Big League Politics has learned. In recent weeks, Doug Band, that should be a name everybody recognizes, has spoken to two criminal investigators working on the Southern District of New York's prosecution of Maxwell. Now, Doug Band was the third witness to specifically allege that Clinton had visited the island of Little St. James, and the first personally connected to the powerful Democrat. Two other witnesses have alleged seeing Clinton on Epstein Island, including one Epstein trafficking victim and a handyman who was employed by the pedophile oligarch on the island. Band asserted in an interview with Vanity Fair that Clinton visited the infamous sex trafficking island in January of 2003, shortly after a charitable trip to Africa with Epstein. Band started working in the Clinton White House in 1995, only leaving the neoliberal dynasty's orbit in 2012. It's possible that the SDNY investigators may have asked Band about Clinton's personal connections with Epstein and his international pedophile ring, although Clinton had a relationship with Maxwell that lasted for decades, even though Jeffrey Epstein's 2008 solicitation of underage prostitution conviction. Maxwell's upcoming sex crimes trial may prove to further enlighten Epstein's sex trafficking operation, serving as the trial that the mysteriously deceased Democrat megadonor never had. Clinton has strenuously denied ever visiting Little St. James, even as 3 different credible witnesses with personal connections to either himself or Epstein say he traveled there. Oh, and of course, never mind the fact that there's a little black book of, every single person who ever traveled down there as well. So, hey, there's that as well. Yeah, let's see here. See if we're back up on the foxhole side over here real quick. Yeah, bear with me, folks. Looks like we're still... there we go. All right, get Chad up over there. A couple of you over there. Good. So Chad is up and working over on the foxhole side as well for those that are over on that side. All right, well, continuing on, we get into Sot, and here it says, "Wherefore art thou, Ghislaine Maxwell?" This dating back now to the 9th of March. Says, "It is now going on a year and a half since financier and pedophile Jeffrey Epstein died, allegedly by hanging himself in a New York City prison. Since that time, it has surfaced that there were a number of administrative errors in the jail, meaning that Epstein was not being observed or on suicide watch even though he had reportedly attempted to kill himself previously. The suspicion that Epstein was working for Israel's external intelligence agency Mossad or for its military intelligence counterpart also seemed confirmed through both Israel and American sources. That shouldn't be any real big surprise, as that was much speculated at the time. Says a recent book, Epstein, Dead Men Tell No Tales, written by Ari Ben-Menashe, the former Israeli intelligence officer who actually ran the Epstein operation, described inter alia how Epstein was blackmailing prominent politicians on behalf of Israeli intelligence. Epstein had been working directly for the Israeli government since the 1980s, and his operation, which was funded by Israel and also by prominent American Jews, was a classic honey trap, which used underage girls as bait to attract well-known politicians from around the world, a list that included Prince Andrew and Bill Clinton. The politicians would be photographed and video recorded when they were in bed with the girls. Afterwards, they would be approached and asked to do favors for Israel. It doesn't take much to pull what is already known together and ask the question, who among the celebrities and top-level politicians that Epstein cultivated were actually Israeli spies? And of course, there is a subplot. Assuming that Epstein was in fact involved in recruiting and or running high-level American agents in an influence operation that may have involved blackmail, it is possible to come to the conclusion that he was killed in prison and that the suicide story was just a convenient cover-up. The Epstein case remains open and under investigation, though it doesn't seem that anything is actually happening. The sure sign that someone powerful in the establishment is making sure that nothing incriminating surfaces. Indeed, there already exists some evidence that Epstein was being protected when he was convicted in Florida of sex crimes in 2008 and was given a sentence that was little more than a slap on the wrist. After the fact, the U.S. Attorney for Miami, Alexander Acosta, involved in the case, reported that the arrest and sentencing were above his pay grade, that he had been told that Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone, a comment that apparently has never been pursued by investigators. That the Epstein investigation appears to be in reverse gear suggests that one or more powerful Americans are still not implicated in the case, but are concerned that that might change. But there remains an accessory to what went on at the Epstein mansion in Manhattan and on his private island in the Caribbean. That would be Ghislaine Maxwell, who is currently in prison in the Metropolitan Detention Center in Brooklyn and will be tried in July. Like the Epstein story in general, she has largely dropped off the media screen, and one has to wonder what get-out-of-jail-free card she might be holding. It has long been assumed that Epstein video recorded the sexual encounters with the underage girls that he used in his intelligence activity to blackmail prominent politicians, among others. It has been suspected that Ghislaine has at least some of those tapes hidden in a secret location and may be using them to cut a deal with investigators and prosecutors. It now appears that she briefly discussed the tapes with CBS News 60 Minutes producer Ira Rosen, also making clear that there were tapes of both Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. Well, isn't that convenient? Because, if we're the Mockingbird media, and we always have to vilify Donald Trump, so there's that. The conversation took place in 2016, and she reportedly told Rosen that, given Trump's involvement in the upcoming election, she would not release any information derived from the tapes related to Clinton until after the election, and she would only do so while also exposing Trump. Up until now, she has done neither. It has long been known that Epstein knew both the ex and future presidents, though both have denied knowing the sex offender well for obvious reasons. Clinton, for example, flew on Epstein's Lolita Express Private 727 at least 26 times, and his presence at Epstein's Island Refuge has also been well documented. Trump clearly knew Epstein, but has denied having any contact with him after his registration as a sex offender in 2008. Ghislaine, for her part, was allegedly recruited young girls for Epstein to exploit and was a partner in his activity, though she has denied any guilt. Numerous victims say otherwise. Her lawyers have tried a number of ploys to free her, including claims that she has been abused by prison staff and that the jury being selected to try her will be too white. Her brother Ian claimed last week that she is enduring brutal and degrading treatment in prison, with 4 guards watching her at all times. He added that she has lost 20 pounds and ability to concentrate. Oh, poor thing. Ghislaine also offered to post a $28.5 million bail or a $5 million bond for home arrest, in which she would wear an ankle monitor. But the judge decided that given her extensive resources, she constitutes a considerable flight risk, even if she turns in her American, British, and French passports. She would also be able to flee to Israel based on her father Robert's religion and service to that country, and Israel does not normally extradite. The most interesting aspect of the arrest, imprisonment, and trial of Ghislaine Maxwell is what it does not do. She basically is being tried on whether it can be confirmed that she was a pimp for Jeffrey Epstein. Her father was an Israeli intelligence asset, and it is believed that he made the connection between Epstein and the Jewish state's military intelligence. But no one in that New York courtroom in July will be asking that. Nor will there be any revelations about Epstein's intelligence connection, nor of the possibility that the Israelis had their hooks in both a former and a future American president. None of that will be on the table, and meanwhile, Ghislaine might have those possibly incriminating tapes squirreled away somewhere. That is the reality. That is the really important stuff that I would like to have the answers to. The fact that the answers are not forthcoming sounds a bit like a cover-up, doesn't it? And that is an article penned by Phil Giraldi, Ph.D., Executive Director of the Council for National Interest. And of note, keep in mind, for those keeping track of all the clowns and that who have been dispersed into all of the media, Phil Giraldi does end up being one of those as well. So, that being said, let's flash forward into Becker News. Apparently, within the last week or so, Joy Behar had some things to say. Joy Behar's theory about Prince Andrew's connection to Epstein is just plain bizarre. And, well, her face pretty well says it all. She is pretty bizarre at the end of the day. And who still watches The View anyway, by the way? The View's Joy Behar took a timeout from her usual depraved rantings about politics to share her unfiltered view of the Oprah-fueled kerfuffle about Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. I saw a tweet yesterday. Meghan McCain said, "How about instead of Oprah interviewing Meghan, how about we have the police interview Prince Andrew? I don't understand why he continues to get a pass. I think he should be interviewed by the FBI about the allegation he's a pedophile that had sex, with underage girls. We know he denies it, but the allegations are quite incendiary. And there are photos with Jeffrey Epstein, she added. I think that's where Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's arguments are the strongest. Why is he so protected when they weren't? And there's no good answer for that. I have a theory, Behar volunteered. Sure, McCain said, followed by others dangerously encouraging Joy to talk. The world is dumber for her response. We'll watch maybe just a snippet of this for what it's worth.
Why is he so protected when they weren't? And there's no good answer for that.
No, there's not.
I have a theory. I have a theory.
Sure.
I have a theory about it.
Okay.
Do you want to hear it?
All right.
This will get me into... I'll get into trouble for this, but I've said it before. What if Harry is not Charles's actual biological son?
Whoa, I don't think I had heard that before. But nonetheless, we'll let her carry through here for a minute.
And Andrew is his brother.
Is that a theory?
He is the biological child. It's a rumor. It's a rumor, and I'm saying it's a rumor. He doesn't look like his father.
Okay.
He looks like that other guy. I'm just saying
heard that.
that would answer the question. That would answer the question. They protect the blood. Okay? Just saying. You can go after me for this one.
Well,
it's a rumor.
Well, Joy,
Right.
I was...
Yeah, it's a little bit of a stunner. I'm not going to play the rest of that. I don't want to give them the honor of gracing the feed any more than I have to. But nonetheless, as I have a theory about it, she repeated, I'll get into trouble for this, but I've said it before. What if Harry is not Charles' actual biological son and Andrew is his brother? Is that a theory? Meghan asked incredulously. He is a biological child. It's a rumor, Joy said. It's a rumor, and I'm saying it's a rumor. He doesn't look like his father. Okay, Whoopi said. He looks like that other guy. I'm just saying, Joy added. I've never heard that, McCain replied. That would answer the question, Behar went on. That would answer the question. They protect the blood, okay? Just saying. You can go after me for this one. It's a rumor. So, Joy Behar thinks that Prince Andrew is being protected for his indiscretions with Jeffrey Epstein, and Prince Harry is not, because the latter is not actually Prince Charles's son? Prince Andrew is the son of Queen Elizabeth II and Prince Philip, the Duke of Edinburgh. Prince Andrew is currently 8th in the order of succession, following the arrival of Harry and Meghan's son, Archie. While Joy Behar will undoubtedly weather the storm of controversy that comes her way over her wacky remark at The View, the same might not be said of Piers Morgan, who is moving on from the show Good Morning Britain. Meghan Markle personally filed a complaint against Morgan for criticizing her. Meghan's complaint to ITV concerned the impact Morgan's comments could have on others and how it could degrade the seriousness of mental health issues. The complaint did not relate to the personal nature of Morgan's attacks, the Clown News reported. The most scandalous of Markle's insinuations is that some unnamed member of the British royal family had sought information about the skin color of her future firstborn son, Archie Mountbatten Windsor. In those months, when I was pregnant, all around the same time, we had in tandem the conversation of he won't be given security, he won't be given a title, and also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin will be when he is born, said Meghan. That was relayed to me from Harry. That was from his conversation that family had with him. It was really hard to see those as compartmentalized conversations. Markle had played the victim during her interview with Oprah Winfrey. At one point, she claimed to have contemplated suicide. Well, I'm not going to continue on with that garbage. I don't describe the whole Meghan Harry business anyway. It's just a distraction at the end of the day. That being said, let's carry on to the next. Out of New York Post here, Ghislaine Maxwell's brother reveals key detail about notorious Prince Andrew photo. This dating back now to the 11th. Ghislaine Maxwell's brother all but confirmed the notorious photo of Prince Andrew with the royal sex accuser is set in the alleged madam's house, and refused to rule out Andrew being called as a witness at her trial. Ian Maxwell, 64, initially tried to brush off discussing the photo that Andrew has suggested is a fake when quizzed about it Wednesday during his first broadcast interview in more than 30 years. Says, I don't know anything about the photograph other than that I've seen it's been published. I know it's of interest to your listeners, but nonetheless, I am not here to talk about that, Maxwell told the BBC. He was pressed further, however, and was asked, but do you recognize the setting of that? Was it taken in Ghislaine's house in London? Says, I do recognize that setting, Maxwell confirmed. And of course, here is the photo in question that many of us have seen time and time again. Good luck trying to deny that there, old Prince. Says, when asked about the photo of Ghislaine Maxwell and Prince Andrew, Ian Maxwell said, I do recognize the setting. Says the image shows the disgraced royal with his arm around Virginia Roberts Jeffrey waist, with Ghislaine smiling behind them, is highly contentious because Andrew has repeatedly denied knowing Jeffrey. He also said he does not recall ever going to the upstairs of Maxwell's then London home, where the image is said to have been taken in 2001. Jeffrey was 17 at the time and has repeatedly claimed in interviews and court documents that it was the night Ghislaine Maxwell and late pedophile Jeffrey Epstein first made her have sex with the prince. Maxwell's brother was asked if the accused Madame hopes that people like Prince Andrew, who have known Ghislaine for a long time, would speak in her support. Says we're in the process of gathering together the witnesses and so forth, so I can't comment on the makeup of who's going to be saying what to who, Ian Maxwell told the BBC. Asked bluntly if it's possible that Prince Andrew is called as a witness in Ghislaine's defense, Maxwell said, I can't answer that. I just don't know. As for whether his sister considers Andrew as a friend still, Maxwell said, I would assume that she does, yes. In contrast, Maxwell insisted that his sister's friendship with late pedophile Epstein had ended around 20 years ago, and claimed he only saw them together, I think only once in my entire life. I wish she'd never met the man, obviously, Maxwell said, claiming that his sister is enduring grotesque conditions behind bars in Brooklyn that amounts to torture, while awaiting her trial on sex trafficking charges linked to Epstein. So, again, I guess highlighting the famous, infamous, whichever way you want to look at it, photo. Perhaps there is confirmation that, yes, this is indeed at Ghislaine's flat, whatever, in London. Gonna be tough for old Prince Andrew to get out of that one. And continuing on, out of Washington Examiner here, back on the 12th, Ghislaine Maxwell to sell home to afford Epstein-tied legal fees. So apparently funds must be starting to dry up. Ghislaine Maxwell, the British socialite with ties to disgraced pedophile Epstein, will soon be selling her home so she can pay her legal fees, her family spokesman said. The house is located in London's Belgravia district, and the sale will be completed soon, said Brian Basham, a spokesman for the family. Houses in the area have sold for the euro equivalent of between 3.6 million and 11.2 million. One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts Jeffrey, alleged that she was forced to have sex with Prince Andrew at this property in 2001 when she was 17. The member of the royal family has disputed the allegations. Maxwell is nearing a deal to sell the property despite her bank, Barclays, deciding to close her accounts in February, according to the Wall Street Journal. Her brother, Ian Maxwell, accused the bank of closing her account to protect Barclays CEO Jess Staley, who visited Epstein's private island multiple times when he was an executive at J.P. Morgan Chase and Company. You're starting to see all these lovely connections, folks. Yes, it's going to ensnare a few folks. Banksters. We have no idea what Staley got up to with Epstein, but whatever it was, it's his problem, and he should not be taking his problems out on my sister. Staley is playing at Pontius Pilate with my sister's life, Ian Maxwell said, though a bank spokesperson rebutted the claim, stating, as a matter of course, the group CEO would not be involved in decisions to close accounts. Yeah, right. Maxwell was arrested in July 2020 and charged with conspiring with Epstein to recruit, groom, and sexually abuse underage girls, as well as perjury in depositions regarding Epstein. The British socialite vigorously denies the charges and pleads not guilty. She was denied bail by Judge Nathan Allison, whichever, of the Southern District of New York multiple times, and a recent proposal revealed that Maxwell and her unidentified husband are worth more than $22 million. Maxwell's trial is set for the summer of 2021. And again, there's the highlight of Epstein being arrested in 2019. So, either way, apparently $22 million must not be enough to cover the cost of her, I'm sure, highfalutin attorneys and lawyers and everything else. So now we got to unload the properties. And so that takes us over to Technofog's Substack here. Says the Ghislaine Maxwell case and the ongoing investigations of Epstein co-conspirators. This just out on the 17th. So a little background. Ghislaine Maxwell remains in jail, awaiting trial for charges including 1. Conspiracy to entice/transport minors to engage in illegal sex acts, 2. Transportation of a minor to engage in illegal sex acts, and 3. Perjury. She doesn't yet have a trial date and sits, or as Maxwell would say, suffers, in jail as the case continues. So Technofog kicked this tweet out the other day. Says, the Ghislaine Maxwell indictment charges include, which are the 4 that I just described, and here is the case 20 CR 330, United States of America versus Ghislaine Maxwell. There's the first count, second count, third count, fourth, all the way through here via tweet on July 2nd of last year, rather. Says Maxwell is currently fighting this war on multiple fronts. The first has to do with dismissal. As we previously reported, she is trying to get the charges dropped. One of her best arguments, read her motion to dismiss on Scribd, is that Epstein's plea deal precludes her prosecution. And here's the key piece in that. Again, the NPA citing expressly provides that in exchange for Epstein's compliance with the terms and conditions therein, the United States also agrees that it will not institute any criminal charges against any potential co-conspirators of Epstein, with no express geographic limitation. Continuing on, the U.S. has responded to this motion to dismiss, and per a March 16, 2021 letter to the court from Maxwell's attorneys, it appears that the government's motions and supporting exhibits are currently under seal, so not released to us yet. However, we are mindful of the fact that the government's omnibus memorandum in opposition to the defendant's pretrial motions, to which the reply memoranda respond, has not yet been filed on the public docket. Second, Maxwell seeks more evidence. Here is where it gets interesting. On February 4th, 2021, Maxwell filed her memorandum in support of her motion for a bill of particulars and pretrial disclosures. And again, we can find those links there. It says, in layman's terms, this means she wants the immediate disclosure of exculpatory and impeachment material, a government witness/evidence list, and more general information of the alleged charges. Interestingly, Maxwell alleges the government has not disclosed the identities of the victims. Maxwell was arrested on July 2, 2020. This puts her at 8 months from the date of arrest to the filing of this motion, where she didn't have this information. And highlighting here, first and foremost, the government still has not disclosed the identities of the witnesses who have accused Ms. Maxwell of wrongdoing. Well, I find that hard to believe because I'm going to touch upon the court listener case of Virginia Jeffrey against Maxwell, so we know of at least 1. The previous article said there's 3, but I suspect there's probably a lot more, perhaps under Jane Doe's and whatnot. Maybe they've come forward, maybe they haven't, I don't know. She further claims that she has been provided almost no information about the details of her criminal conduct. And it says, highlighting here, the discovery contains only a handful of documents that even pertain to the time period charged in the indictment, from 1994 to 1997, and what little exists offers almost no information about the details of, for example, exactly when and where the alleged incidents of sexual abuse took place, who was allegedly present, and how the alleged conduct violated the law. Well, what else wasn't produced to Maxwell? The dates the criminal conduct occurred. Again highlighting, says, yet the government has not alleged the dates of Ms. Maxwell's alleged interactions with Accuser 1, the dates when Accuser 1 allegedly traveled across state lines for the purpose of engaging in sexual encounters with Jeffrey Epstein, the dates on which Ms. Maxwell allegedly enticed the complainant to do so, and the actions Ms. Maxwell allegedly took to entice Accuser 1 to travel. Maxwell also seeks FBI 302 summaries of witness interviews. At least one interview is alleged to contain details redacted, exculpatory material that must be produced to the defense. And here we see some of the redacted portion of that section. The contents of this interview are therefore exculpatory Brady material and should be produced to the defense. Accompanying the motion was a list of particulars which requires information on 29 different topics. And of course, we can go to the scribed version of that there. This is more to come. Motions and exhibits to be unsealed. This is in the next few weeks. We expect the unsealing of the government's response to Maxwell's motion to dismiss and the response to a request for more information on her charges and accusers. We should also be seeing the following motions from Maxwell, which includes the issues of dismissal, breach of the Epstein non-prosecution agreement, the NPA, and her request for more documents and information relating to her charges put on the public docket. And we'll provide updates as soon as the court provides public access. But listing them out, says number 1, reply memorandum in support of motion to dismiss the superseding indictment for breach of the NPA. A reply memorandum in support of motion to dismiss counts 1 through 4 of the superseding indictments as time barred. Number 3, reply memorandum in support of motion under the Due Process Clause to suppress all evidence obtained from the government subpoena to redacted and to dismiss counts 5 and 6. Number 4, the reply memorandum in support of motion to dismiss counts 5 and 6 of the superseding indictment because the alleged misstatements are not perjurious as a matter of law. Number 5, reply memorandum in support of motion for a severance of and separate trial on counts 5 and 6 of the superseding indictment. Number 6, reply memorandum in support of motion to strike surplusage from the superseding indictment. Number 7, reply memorandum in support of motion to dismiss counts 1 through 6 of the superseding indictment for pre-indictment delay. Number 8, reply memorandum in support of motion to dismiss either count 1 or count 3 of the superseding indictment as multiplicitous. Number 9, reply memorandum in support of motion to dismiss the superseding indictment as it was obtained in violation of the Sixth Amendment. See how quickly they turned to using the old Constitution when needed, but otherwise, we'll just shit all over it. Reply memorandum in support of motion for a bill of particulars and pre-trial disclosures. Number 10 there. Number 11, reply memorandum in support of motion under the Fourth Amendment, citing the Martindale and the Fifth Amendment to suppress all evidence obtained from the government's subpoena to redacted and to dismiss counts 5 and 6. And number 12, reply memorandum in support of motion to dismiss counts 1 through 4 of the superseding indictments for lack of specificity. Several of the reply memoranda reference or discuss confidential information produced in discovery and are therefore redacted pursuant to paragraph 15 of the protective order, docket 36. This is in order to give the government the chance to review the proposed redactions. We will not file on the public docket any reply memoranda that contain redactions until we are instructed to do so by the court. And also pending Maxwell's third try to get out on bail, which we just discussed. It says in July 2020, the court concluded she was a serious flight risk. On December 28, 2020, Maxwell proposed to the court a more significant bail package, which included armed guards and a $28.5 million bond. This was again denied, with the court noting Maxwell plainly poses a risk of flight. In February 2021, Maxwell proposed 2 additional conditions to her prior bail package. 1, renunciation of her French and British citizenship, and 2, placement of some of her and her husband's assets and a new account overseen by an asset monitor. The court has yet to rule on Maxwell's latest bail proposal. Finally, one important question is still unanswered. Will any more of Epstein's co-conspirators be prosecuted? We can understand, but can't fully answer this question by looking at Epstein's non-prosecution agreement. This agreement, or plea deal, was unique, not just because it was favorable and done in secret and kept secret from his victims and the public, but because it released Epstein's known and unknown co-conspirators from the non-prosecution agreement. The United States also agrees that it will not institute any criminal charges against any potential co-conspirators of Epstein, including but not limited to Sarah Kellen, Adriana Ross, Leslie Groff, or Nadia Marcinkova. Last August, the government informed the court that their investigation into Epstein's possible co-conspirators remains active and was before the grand jury. And a quick highlighted section out of that says, as the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York has stated publicly, the investigation into the conduct of the defendant in this case and other possible co-conspirators of Epstein remains active. The full scope and details of that investigation, however, have not been made public. Other highlighted sections here. Moreover, as detailed more fully in the government's companion submission, that designation is appropriate given the nature of the document at issue, all of which pertain to the government's pending grand jury investigation. And a footnote says, to the extent it would be useful to this court for the government to further elaborate on the nature of the ongoing grand jury investigation. So, the identity of Epstein's unknown co-conspirators has always been intriguing. He ran in powerful circles. One name that always comes up is Wild Bill himself, Bill Clinton. This summer, unsealed records from Maxwell's civil case implicated Bill Clinton being around two young girls at Epstein Island. And here we get Technofog highlighting that via tweet, dating back to July 31st of last year. When you say you asked him why is Bill Clinton here, where was here? On the island. When you were present with Jeffrey Epstein and Bill Clinton on the island, who else was there? Ghislaine, Emmy, and there were two young girls that I could identify. I never really knew them well anyways. It was just two girls from New York. Highlighted section there. Says this allegation was denied by Bill Clinton's spokesman. Says I'm pretty certain that Maxwell's lawyers know much more than we do. Maxwell's February 2021 motion to dismiss also included this redacted passage that identifies the unnamed co-conspirators. Here again, the highlighted section. The NPA makes clear that its identification of four potential co-conspirators by name, Kellen, Ross, Groff, and Marcinkova, was not intended to limit the immunity provision to those four individuals, but not limited to, and we understand that those individuals, and all the rest is redacted, plus Exhibit H. Says to close and to address our final question, will any more of Epstein's co-conspirators be prosecuted? We suspect that passage above might have the answer. With the DOJ's potentially ongoing investigation of the co-conspirators and pursuant to DOJ policy, don't expect the passage to be unredacted anytime soon. So that's a little bit of an update via Technofog and that here in recent days. And of course, one must also look at the folks in that who are being sworn in under Biden at this point. Merrick Garland and company. Do you honestly believe at this point that they're going to allow this to continue? Do you think, and I ask you guys in chat, if you think that perhaps we will see Ghislaine walk scot-free? I don't know. It's tough to say at this point, but we'll keep an eye on it. Let's put it that way. So, out of National File, silence. Media outlets won't explain why damning Clinton-Epstein article was quietly deleted. And so it's highlighting the Daily Beast and Radar Online have not explained why they removed the Clinton-Epstein article off their websites. Again, here in recent days. It says Daily Beast and Radar Online posted then soon deleted a story claiming that longtime Bill Clinton affiliate Doug Band spoke with the prosecutors for the Southern District of New York about Jeffrey Epstein's pedophile island. National File reached out to the organizations for an explanation, but it received no response. Daily Beast and Radar Online wrote stories that claimed that Doug Band had provided evidence that could implicate his old boss, former President Bill Clinton, in the probe against international sex traffickers Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Immediately after the stories were published, they were quickly removed from both websites with no explanation. Perhaps the old HRC dynasty and company, the syndicate, as it were, still has a little bit of control over the media. Earlier that day, Radar Online's Chris Spargo also claimed that Ghislaine Maxwell revealed that she dated Doug Band in her 2016 deposition, as seen in this tweet. And here we see the tweet in question. She described it as an adult consensual relationship, which is a rarity in this case. Highlighting page 137 of whichever document this is, as he tweeted that out back on March 5th. Jack Posobiec, there we go, says when the articles were published, internet users were quick to comment on the new developments. Posobiec says this Doug Band story is legit. He was Clinton's right-hand man for 2 decades. Flipped and is talking to the feds about Maxwell and Epstein. And here we get an open secret breaking Bill Clinton aide Doug Band flips, implicates boss in Epstein probe. Let me see if I can play any of this. It's a Periscope here. How long is this? We'll see. We'll play a little bit of this through, I guess.
Hey everybody, come on in. This is important news. It's breaking. It's Gabe Hoffman from An Open Secret here, talking about the Jeffrey Epstein probe from the Southern District of New York. This is breaking. This is a very big deal. So what happened is Bill Clinton's over 20-year aide, Doug Band, some consider Doug Band his bagman, provided evidence to the feds, the Southern District of New York, in their investigation of ties to Jeffrey Epstein and Madam Ghislaine Maxwell. So the backstory on this is that Doug Band, Bill Clinton's former aide of 20 years, he had talked to Vanity Fair about 2 months ago, and just mentioned off the cuff, yeah, I've talked to the feds. But it was a story that was written. It was a story that was written by, Gabe Sherman of Vanity Fair, who's kind of known for a lot of fake news, and it was just him. Sherman basically gave Doug Band a platform to kind of just trash Clinton. Gabe Sherman didn't actually do any investigation of the claims that Doug Band was making. So what's new and what's happened today is Chris Spargo of Radar Online confirmed with the Southern District of New York, got his sourcing that in fact, yes, they have gotten information from former Bill Clinton aide Doug Band, 20-year aide, concerning the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell investigation. Now, Chris Spargo, you might think, oh, Radar Online. Chris Spargo has covered the Epstein beat for some time. He's broken a lot of big stories in Daily Mail and in other publications concerning Jeffrey Epstein for the past couple of years. Chris Spargo is as good a journalist as there is on the Jeffrey Epstein beat. And so Chris Spargo, confirmed with the Southern District of New York that yes, they had spoken with former Clinton aide Doug Band, 20-year aide, concerning the Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell investigation. There's some interesting, tidbits that, Doug Band was also on Epstein's flight manifest, along with Bill Clinton. He was on the Epstein flight manifest in 2002, for example. They flew from New York to London with, some Secret Service and with Epstein and Maxwell. There's, there are trips with Secret Service agents and Naomi Campbell. Naomi Campbell is a supermodel who used to be Doug Band's girlfriend back in the day. And of course, they flew to places like Japan, Hong Kong, China, Singapore, and Thailand. Now, again, what's important is that Chris Spargo is a real journalist who's covered the Jeffrey Epstein beat for a long time. We worked with Chris Spargo at the Daily Mail back in 2019. He published documents of ours that we had on Brian Singer and underage private settlements for underage child sex abuse. We had documents, legal documents. Nobody else would have the courage to publish them, and Chris Spargo published them. So Chris Spargo is a real accredited journalist, and he's the first to confirm that with the Southern District of New York, his sourcing, that yes, this former Bill Clinton aide of 20 years, Doug Band, has in fact talked to the feds We've posted the Radar Online article on our Twitter feed. Recommend that you go and read it. It's got a lot of interesting tidbits. It's got some tidbits about Doug Band's work in Saudi Arabia. There's a real question, Doug Band registering with a foreign agent. And remember that Saudi Arabia has importance because Saudi Arabia is one of the countries that Jeffrey Epstein had a fake passport, and it was found that Jeffrey Epstein had actually entered the country of Saudi Arabia multiple times using that passport. Doug Band, the former Clinton aide of 20 years, who turned on Clinton and flipped. Doug Band is one of 70 people, named by Virginia Roberts, the Epstein victim, in the 2016 court filing that named people that she believed had knowledge or might have knowledge of Jeffrey Epstein's child sex trafficking. So once again, confirmed by Chris Spargo of Radar Online. We've posted the article. It's well worth reading. It's got a lot of details in it. But Chris Spargo has confirmed with the Southern District of New York that, in fact, former Bill Clinton aide of 20 years, Doug Band, his closest aide, has in fact flipped and gone to the Southern District of New York to talk about Bill Clinton with respect to the investigation into Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. So again, Chris Spargo, a real journalist, somebody who's worked the Jeffrey Epstein beat for years, broken a lot of big news at Daily Mail and other places. Chris Spargo has just broken this important news for Radar Online. Chris Spargo has gone to sources at the Southern District of New York, the SDNY, and Chris Spargo has confirmed that, in fact, former Bill Clinton aide of 20 years, really his closest aide named Doug Band, that Doug Band has in fact flipped, and Doug Band has gone to the SDNY and given them information with respect to Bill Clinton regarding the investigation of Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Hope you go read the articles on our Twitter. We'll post it again below. Thanks and have a good evening.
So there you go. There is the Periscope from 16 days ago talking about Doug Band apparently flipping. Continuing back to the article. He's about to have an accident. Yeah, I would not be surprised. Probably keep an eye out for headlines in that regard. There aren't enough Secret Service men in the world who could keep this guy alive. Yeah, I would not be surprised. Very shortly after the stories were published, they were quickly deleted from the websites. However, National File was able to retrieve this portion of the Daily Beast article from Google's cache. In part of that article says Bill Clinton's former body man and aide has cooperated with the federal investigation into the former president's ties to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Radar Online reports Doug Band, normally reticent to speak about his former boss, spoke with prosecutors for the Southern District of New York around December 2020, about the millionaire sex trafficker and his alleged madame. According to the site, Band made frequent appearances on Epstein's flight manifests in the early 2000s, at one point traveling with his alleged girlfriend Naomi Campbell to the financier's private island Little St. James, known locally as Pedophile Island. He also accompanied Epstein and Clinton on lengthy trips through Africa and Asia. Band has claimed he urged Clintons to cut ties with Epstein and Maxwell for years, but photos as recently as 2007 show him parting with the pair. Virginia Roberts Jeffrey, one of Epstein's many victims, named Band in a 2016 court filing as one of 70 people who would have knowledge of Epstein's and Maxwell's alleged sex trafficking. Additionally, users on Reddit posted what appears to be the full Radar Online story, as pointed out by the anti-human trafficking Twitter account known as An Open Secret, which we just listened to. The articles were removed in the early afternoon of March 5th, less than an hour after the deletions. National File reached out to the Daily Beast and Radar Online for clarification and explanation, but has not received a response. National File specifically asked if the respective outlets intended to notify readers of a retraction. The sudden removal has raised questions concerning the dissemination of false information, or perhaps a real-time cover-up, of information pertaining to one of the greatest criminal scandals in the history of the United States. According to Daily Beast policy, story deletions will occur only in very rare circumstances having to do with a serious and fundamental factual error, significant violation of our values, or concern about compromising personal safety. Or perhaps if the HRC syndicate probably has come after them and said, knock it off. I probably didn't add that one. All right, well, last but not least, as I detailed at the very beginning, this was the latest development here in the last couple days. A judge rules some Ghislaine Maxwell details are too sensational and impure to be revealed to the public. So this out of Law and Crime says a federal judge in Manhattan on Thursday ruled on a series of redactions proposed by Ghislaine Maxwell and prosecutors regarding a compilation of transcripts submitted under seal by the government last month. After reviewing arguments from both sides, U.S. District Judge Allison J. Nathan allowed most of the government's redactions to remain in place over Maxwell's objections, while also adding several additional redactions at her request. Maxwell's legal team in January filed 12 motions requesting that the court, among other things, dismiss all of the charges relating to her alleged role as a recruiter of young girls for infamous and since-deceased sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. The government responded in February with an omnibus memorandum of law opposing Maxwell's motions, all of which were filed under seal pending rulings on the redactions. The government argued that its redactions were required in order to protect the integrity of its ongoing criminal investigation into Maxwell and to protect the privacy interest of third parties. Judge Nathan granted most of the government's requests, reasoning that the redactions were based on legitimate interests to overcome the presumption of public access to judicial documents. Exhibit 1 contains a single redaction, the name of a third party, and the court concludes that that individual's personal privacy interests outweigh the presumption of access that exists as to that limited portion of the exhibit, Judge Nathan wrote. The proposed redactions to Exhibit 7 are similar in that they seek to protect from public access only the names and contact information of third parties. Here, too, the interest in protecting the safety and privacy of those individuals outweighs the presumption of access that attaches to those documents. Nathan rejected Maxwell's objection to redactions containing information that has been made public by other means, where such information still relates to the privacy interests of third parties. At least some of the redactions to which the defendant objects relate to private family affairs of a third party, a factor that weighs more heavily against access than conduct affecting a substantial portion of the public, Nathan wrote, citing to controlling precedent from the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. And, though the defendant contends that some of the information contained in the redactions is public, she furnishes no evidence to that effect. As a result, the court concludes that the significant privacy interests at stake justify the limited and narrowly tailored redactions contained in Exhibit 5. Judge Nathan, citing privacy interests, did side with Maxwell on several additional redactions, proposed a transcript submitted as part of the government's filing, finding that to make those details public would only tend to cater to an appetite for the sensational and impure. Now, before I continue on, consider who the judge is in this particular case. Basically, Nathan, a transgender judge, stating that something would be sensational and impure. Crazy. What crazy times we live. Those portions of the transcript which were redacted in the civil matter concern privacy interests, and their disclosure would merely serve to cater to a craving for that which is sensational and impure, she wrote. The court thus concludes that such redactions are justified. It's unclear what Judge Nathan has redacted, but Judge Loretta Preska, the federal judge in the civil case, ruled on January 19th that details Maxwell's provided about her consensual sexual relationships with adults would remain redacted in publicly released versions of deposition transcripts. And there we see the Miami Herald article, Judge orders release of more Ghislaine Maxwell records, minus salacious details. Although the prurient interest of some may be left unsatiated. As a result, Ms. Maxwell's interest in keeping private the details of her sexual relationships with consenting adults warrants the sealing of those portions of her testimony, said Preska, emphasizing privacy interests. Several other redactions proposed by the government were rejected at Maxwell's request after Judge Nathan found that prosecutors failed to provide a reasonable basis as to why its investigation at this stage of the matter would be imperiled by the disclosure of the information regarding how it obtained the information in question, and the requested redactions are far from narrowly tailored. As a result, the court denies the government's redaction requests on pages 1 to 128 and denies its request to file Exhibits 8 and 9 under seal, since those documents relate to this very issue and the same reasoning applies to them, Nathan wrote. This court will allow the government to seek more tailored redactions before the redactions are removed on the public docket. And here we can see the 5-page filing in question. Yeah, I don't know if we'll go through that here tonight. I'll drop the link in case you guys haven't seen that. You guys can peruse that at your leisure. But nonetheless, that is where things currently reside with the old Maxwell case. Note story was updated to include additional context about Judge Preska's handling of the civil case. Yeah, there we go. Nonetheless, the saga continues, and of course, if you ever want to follow the civil side of things, obviously the Jeffrey versus Maxwell 115 CV 07433 over on Court Listener, you guys can check that out, all 7 pages. The last filings, I believe, through all of this, its long sordid history, takes us all the way to and through, I think it's February 24th was the last submissions via the docket here. February 19th, there we go. Submission number 1215. Main document, reply, non-motion. Most all these have been unsealed. There are still a handful. You can kind of scroll up through here, see some of these exhibits by on Pacer, etc., still remain sealed to some degree, but by far and large, a good chunk of these have been unsealed, and yes, to the public, we can certainly go through and peruse documents. Now, I would assume that the other case in that, the criminal case in that, I have not looked into that to see how many documents are submitted underneath that, but nonetheless, you can imagine that, yeah, there's probably going to be a lot of crossover, I would imagine, between the two. But nonetheless, that brings us up to speed as to the latest goings-on. I was going to throw in one more. The fact that old Bill Gates had an AMA yesterday, but perhaps I'll save that one for a little piece on Mr. Gates, kind of bringing us up to speed on all the goings-on around old Billy Boy there. But apparently the question was asked yesterday via AMA on Reddit with Mr. Gates, his affiliation with Mr. Epstein. And of course he kind of walked right through that question and didn't bother to answer. So, again, perhaps I'll save that article for another seance with old Bill Gates and kind of bring us up to speed on that one. All right, well, that is going to do it for the broadcast tonight. Appreciate you guys tuning in, as always, on all the various platforms, bringing us up to speed on the Epstein goings-on, the Ghislaine Maxwell's. Might as well stick the old hashtag out there. Ghislaine did not kill herself. Perhaps maybe Doug Band may need the same hashtag here, especially given what has gone on in recent days with the revelations, him obviously flipping now, as we just heard, and providing material evidence into these cases. So, again, that's going to do it for the broadcast tonight. I'll see you back here tomorrow. We'll be back here on the 5x5 channel for our Sunday roundtable, and you will be able to catch us there at that time, kicking off about 3 p.m. Central Time, 4 p.m., I believe, Eastern Time. So that'll do it. Take care.